Hey there! Glad to have you here. In this video, I'm going to show you how I built an infinity cube table, step by step, from the very first cut to the final finish. You'll see exactly what materials I used, how I handled the tricky parts, and yes, the mistakes I made along the way. For me, every project is a lesson, so if you love projects made with passion, hit like, and let's get started. I cut the pipes to the desired dimensions using a special metal saw. It cuts straight and clean, no hassle. After each cut, I grind the edges and make a small bevel so the weld holds perfectly. Finally, I sand it down until it's flush with the pipe, smooth, clean, and ready for the next step. Next comes the preparation of the table segments, the stage where everything starts to take shape. I work through each component one by one. The top, the bottom, the two smaller sides, and the two larger sides. Each piece needs to be measured, cut, and adjusted carefully so that everything fits perfectly in the end. The final dimensions of the table are approximately 800 millimeters in length and 400 in width. It might seem simple, but this is where the difference shows between a table that looks okay and one that truly looks professional. Every millimeter counts. Every edge needs to be straight, because any small deviation will show later when we start welding. At this stage, I constantly check the flatness and symmetry of each piece. I use long rulers, metal squares, and even a level to make sure everything is properly aligned and the angles are perfect. This is the most meticulous part of the project, and although it takes the longest, it's also the part that determines the final quality of the table. If a piece isn't cut exactly right, even a tiny misalignment will show later, either at the joints or during welding, and fixing it can take hours. That's why I'd rather spend a few extra minutes now doing everything carefully than waste time and energy later. Once all the segments are ready, I do a final check of the dimensions and the assembly direction. I look at every corner, every edge, to make sure everything is perfectly aligned. Only then can I move on to the part I enjoy the most, welding, the moment when the pieces come to life and the table starts to look exactly as I planned. Now I start the actual welding. I chose to work in segments so I can handle the pieces more easily and have better control over each joint. Each segment is held in place with clamps and magnets to prevent any movement during welding. This helps me keep the angles exact and avoid mistakes that could affect the whole frame. Then I weld the corners to form the main frames, making sure each weld is even and strong. After welding, I carefully check all the joints to ensure everything fits perfectly and there are no irregularities. Next comes grinding. I remove any excess metal and smooth all the edges so the surface is clean and even. It's detailed and patient work, but absolutely essential to give the table a professional finish and prepare it for the next steps. Now it's time for the final assembly. This is where things get a bit more challenging, because every segment has to line up perfectly at 90 degrees. The weight of the steel pipes makes it tricky. Sometimes the frame starts to sag just a little, so I have to cut, adjust, and weld again until it sits just right. It takes time, but precision always does. Step by step, I keep adjusting each piece, checking every corner with the square, measuring the diagonals again and again, until everything stays perfectly straight. This stage really tests your patience. Every single millimeter matters, especially when you're working with thick, heavy steel. After a few tweaks, a couple of re-welds, and plenty of checking, the frame finally looks just how I wanted it. Solid, balanced, and perfectly aligned. From this point on, everything starts coming together. The table takes shape, and you can finally see the result of hours of work. I even thought about adding a thin steel tube on the top section, for extra strength without adding weight. Sometimes the smallest details make the biggest difference. Before painting comes one of the most important steps, cleaning and final finishing. All joints are checked, edges are smoothed, and any weld marks or scratches are completely removed. This stage takes patience and precision. Even the smallest mistake will show right after painting. Next, I weld the flat bars that will hold the glass. Each piece is positioned carefully to ensure a perfect fit and a clean look. Once everything is clean, even, and well secured, the table is ready for the final coat of paint. That wraps up the preparation stage. Before I show you the final product, I want to share what I think I did wrong and what I would do differently next time. Here, I left too much space. I didn't realize that once the glass was placed on top, its corner would stick out this far beyond the frame. That's quite dangerous, especially if you have kids around. If I were to build it again, I'd keep the same proportions, but I'd recommend cutting the glass corners at an angle, just for safety. I used rectangular tubing, 40 by 40 millimeters, with a 4 millimeter wall thickness for the entire table. I chose that size because the table has very few support points. It basically holds itself by weight. Still, I think that was a small mistake. The top part turned out a bit too heavy, and there's a slight vibration when you touch it. Next time, for the frame that holds the glass, I'll use thinner tubing. About 2 millimeters should be enough. That would reduce the overall weight and make the table more balanced. Thank you for staying with me until the end of the video. Now, I'll show you the finished Infinity-Cube table, completely done and ready. See you in the next video.